So this is going to be your first day at sampling, and you said it was difficult. You want to expand on that, or shall we just go and look at the beeps here?
Well, let me expand on it and sort of explain what I was sort of referred to before about this time not perhaps being the best time. So on Fridays, I take care of my 2-year-old. That's my day that I have with her. And Saturday mornings, I think, are just, I mean, once again, she's around, we're sort of at home, my partner's around. So on Fridays, I'm sort of alone with her at home, and but in sort of sole, you know, I'm the person caring for her. On Saturday morning, my partner's around, but, you know, we're both kind of futzing about the house. The device is very interesting to her, and, you know, she kind of wants to pull the thing coming out of my ear, and it's, you know, she just can't quite seem to get past it in the way that a 2-year-old seems.
Good for her.
Yeah, yeah. So there's that, you know, that's kind of potentially, you know, I'm trying to stop her from pulling it out and pulling the thing out of the headphone jack, the headphone out of the jack. But then there's also, I think that's also just really increasing my awareness of it. So I'm not really ever able to kind of forget it. And also I'm just often doing very physical things with her, like sort of rolling around on the floor or, not really kind of, I think that this thing is best if you're kind of sitting still or, you know, just walking around maybe, but not kind of running in the park and pushing a kid on the swings and rolling around on the floor. So I thought I was going to do it on Friday, and I was just, you know, trying to find a time. I thought, oh, maybe I'll pop it in when she has a nap, but that's only ever really an hour, and then I've got to pick her up, you know. So I couldn't find a time on Friday. And so this morning, you know, she was interrupting it. My partner gave me a bit of respite from her. But, definitely that was an obstacle, as well as the fact that when I'm with her, I'm kind of constantly interacting with her in a way that, I mean, and I'm interested to ask you the question about, and some of my beeps will kind of cover that. But like when you're in the midst of a conversation or an engagement with someone, it's very, you know, the beep would go off and I'd be like, oh, I was in the middle of a sentence. So one of my beeps, I was in the middle of a sentence and I knew exactly where I was in the sentence. Was I was trying to find a word, so I was repeating the 3 words that I was saying. So I was saying in my mind, I was saying in the, because I was trying to say in the groceries. I was telling my partner that there was something in the groceries that had just arrived, but I was stumbling. I couldn't find the word groceries in my head. But almost all of, in fact, every single one of my 4 beeps were mid-conversation. And basically, I think, I mean, I do, yeah, I couldn't quite, I've written them all down as being what I just said, or kind of what was in my mind of what I was saying. And I can't be entirely sure if just before the beep that was it, or actually it was what I was hearing with the person I was speaking to.
Well, rather than trying to answer this question as a general question, why don't we look at a few beeps? And maybe we should start with the beep that we're already talking about, even if that wasn't the first beep, but we're starting to talk about in the grocery beep. Why don't we deal with that, and then deal with another couple of beeps, and then come back and talk about the general principles that might be involved, and when we should do this again, if we should do this again, or whatever. Everybody agree that that's a good idea?
Yep.
All right. So what was this, your first beep or your second beep or your third beep?
It was the second beep.
So we'll call this beep 1.2, but we'll talk about it first. And so why don't you tell us what was in your experience at this particular beep? Tell us again.
Okay, so it would have been about 6:30. It was still quite early. I'd just gotten out of bed and was down in the kitchen. So we had a grocery delivery that came shortly after 6, and my partner had carried them all into the kitchen from the front door, and so my partner was there. You know, my daughter was buzzing around, and I was standing at the bench, and the full sentence was, Darcy, there were some funny substitutions in the groceries. Because you do these online orders, and if they don't have something that you've ordered, they substitute it with something that they consider to be a fine substitution that sometimes, to my mind, is not a fine substitution. Anyway, so I said, Darcy, there were some funny substitutions in the and I was, it was 6:30 in the morning and I couldn't find the word groceries, so I was sort of right in the middle of trying to conjure the word grocery when the beep went off.
Okay, and so when you say here, I was in the, do you mean that you were repeating the words in the?
Yeah, I was saying them out loud.
And so saying out loud in the, this is not an inner experience. This is an out loud thing.
Yeah. Yes.
And the beep happens in the I guess in
the midst of in the
midst of in the.
Yeah.
Okay. And so far what we have described is an external thing. I'm saying aloud, Darcy, there was some funny substitutions in the beep.
Mm.
Is that right?
And it may well have even been that I got groceries out before the beep came.
Okay.
So maybe it was maybe it was in the groceries, but it was definitely right around the end of that sentence.
Okay. And so I guess I have said this is an external thing. I'm speaking aloud. Is there any inner experience going on, or is it just this exhausts my capabilities or my characteristics? My inner characteristics are not present because I'm involved in this speaking.
Yeah, I definitely feel like I don't have a independent line of thought or inner experience that is existing independently from the, conjuring and getting out of the words. I mean, I guess the thought there was a thought, but not one that I feel like I have access to, that was a thought being translated into language. It just felt like all that was going on in my head was putting together that sentence, and it was requiring considerable effort. It being 6:30 in the morning.
And is that effort part of your experience, or is it just what's in my experience is I am saying aloud, Darcy, there was some funny substitutions in the groceries, and the beep happens somewhere in there.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like there's a concerted, deliberate effort. It's just, that is just what is happening.
Okay, and the substitution. This is about substitutions, that they substitute a whipping cream for milk or whatever. Mm. And is that present to you? Obviously, you know what you're talking about, but
like the particular ones. Am I thinking in my head of which particular ones?
And I'm not trying to say that there should be or that there is. I'm just asking.
Yeah, I don't think so. No, I think it was all that was in there was the words that were coming out.
Okay. And so, as best what we have concluded so far, as I've understood it, is, as best I can understand it, is at the moment of the beep, I'm speaking aloud and making sense, but I'm stuck on these words. These words aren't coming out glibly; they're coming out slowly or repeatedly or something. But there's nothing else in my experience. It's not like I've planned this sentence and now I'm waiting to make this sentence match some inner plan. Maybe I have planned the sentence, but that's not in my inner experience. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. Alec, you got...
No, I just want to clarify about the conjuring the word groceries. Is there anything separate about that? That I haven't understood that, so I'm not trying to suggest it, but is that just part of the speaking aloud process? Is I'm currently paused, and when groceries comes to me, it's going to come out of my mouth, but it's not like I experience some mental searching or something for the word?
Yeah, that's a good point. I feel like it's more like I'm just waiting for it to arrive rather than I'm desperately searching for it. And it's probably a symptom of both it being early in the morning, but also I guess I was standing at the bench, at the kitchen bench, and I'm sure I was doing something, and I haven't noted down what I was doing. Whether it was getting some yogurt out for my daughter. Like I was definitely doing something that was distracting. That was I think there's a lot of reasons that, when you're talking to someone also and you're like talking to them, but you're trying to write a text message at the same time, and you're doing two things that are competing with the language part of your brain. Also, that's what it feels like most commonly, is that if I'm doing something language-based and I'm trying to say something mundane to my partner, like, can you hang out the laundry, but I'm trying to write an email at the same time, there's that interference, in the same way that sometimes if you're talking to someone and you're writing something, you end up writing the word that you're saying. So I'm writing an email and all of a sudden I start writing hang out the laundry, or even just laundry. So it felt like that, but it wasn't that I was doing a language thing. I was definitely doing a something. So I think the inability to kind of just land on the word was as a result of doing something. But whether there was a kind of discernible search process, no, it didn't feel like that. It just felt like, just waiting for the word to arrive, I think, is the best way that I can describe it.
Okay, good. That's what I understood.
Okay.
So the explanation of why this happened, it was early in the morning, I was competing or whatever, that goes beyond what our interests are. I think speculations about causation are very difficult to do, and so we try not to do it.
Okay.
And I was going to say something else about that too, but my mind is fried about that, so I can't remember. Maybe I was going to make some kind of a joke, like I never talk to my partner and do an email at the same time. I'm always single-minded. But so let's go on to beep number 3 or 2 or beep 3 or 1, which, and Alec.
Can we?
Yeah.
Can we talk about beep number 4?
Sure.
Yeah, let's do it.
Just because to me, this number 3 was quite similar. So, but 4 was quite different, and so I think this one is interesting to talk about. So I was sitting down with my daughter at a little table, drawing with her with some pencils, and we were drawing little stick figures. I was drawing triangles that I was turning into tents, and she was asking me to draw a tent. Anyway, that's too much information. I'd drawn a little stick figure that was her friend. She'd asked me to draw her friend, whose name is Xanthi. So I'd drawn a little stick figure whose friend was Xanthi, and right as the beep went off, I was writing Xanthi's name under the stick figure. And Xanthi's name is spelled Xanthe. But I was, as I noted it down, as I was writing it, I was not thinking Xanthe. I was thinking Xanthi. So I had separated the word into two bits and I was writing Xan and then The, but really in my mind I was hearing Xanthi, and I think I don't know if I was hearing it in a repeated way, but I was definitely aware of hearing Xanthi.
And where does the beep come into play here? What is it, Xanthi, that's in my experience at the moment of the beep?
Yeah.
Okay. And how exactly is that present to you?
I mean, I hear that. I hear Xanthi in my head.
And hear, like you seem to be clear about this as a hearing type, as opposed to say speaking or...
Yeah, look, I'm using the word hear, but I do not, it's not hearing in the same way. I mean, the radio was on at the time, and I was hearing the radio. I mean, I use the word hear, and I've sort of, when I talk to Russell and sort of, I guess more anecdotally was thinking about and have thought about my experience, I definitely think I mean, to me, perceive seems to be a better word than hear for my inner experience, for when I am hearing words or, like I definitely don't think that, even when have noticed myself, rehearsing or replaying conversations I've had with people,
Sure.
which feels very identifiably inner speech in the way that I understand it. I wouldn't still use, I mean, to me, hear does not seem like the right word. Perceive or feel, like, I don't know. I mean, hear seems right because it's there, but it's not there audibly. Like, I don't think I'm actually, hearing it. I'm like hearing it. It feels like an internal hearing versus an external hearing.
Yeah. Okay, so if I'm understanding that, it's like this is different than external hearing, but yet something drives me to still call it a hearing, like that it's coming to me, maybe, that I'm not producing it. Is that part of it? In the same way the radio is coming to me, I'm not making the sounds on the radio?
I guess, but I do feel like I'm producing it.
Okay.
Because there are definitely times when I feel like I'm not hearing anything in my head at all. Because another question I had for you guys, I was thinking about it last night, sitting, watching, oh no, it wasn't last night, it was this morning. I was watching a little 7-minute cartoon with my daughter. It's a long time between 6 in the morning and 9. There's a lot of activities.
A lot can happen, yes.
Unpacking the groceries, doing some drawing. We watched this little cartoon, and it's quite an enjoyable cartoon here on our on the public broadcaster. I was quite enjoying it, and I'm quite engaged in this, and once again back to, I think I'm too aware of it. I was thinking, what will happen if a beep goes up while I'm watching the cartoon? Because while I'm watching the cartoon, I'm not here, like, there's no, there's the external experience that's kind of, but I don't hear any thoughts in my head. I'm just purely kind of absorbing the external stimuli.
So can I have a crack at this hearing Xanthi deal? So I want to start at the beginning. So is Xanthi somehow present to you innerly? Without putting a verb as to how it's present, but are you
Yes.
somehow articulating Xanthi at the moment of the beep?
Yes. Yes, and I think what I remarked, because interestingly I'm perceiving Xanthi as I'm writing the letters. And I think that was what was interesting to me to have the beep go off at that time, was that I realized that I wasn't thinking X, A, N. I was thinking Xanthi, and my hand was just doing. And it was definitely, I imagine that I probably did a tiny pause between the N and the T, so that I really wrote Xanthe, but maybe I'm projecting. That's all speculation. I feel like that. But it just felt very clear to me that in my mind was 2 syllables rather than 6 letters, writing out 6 letters.
So in my mind are 2 syllables separated by a pause. Xanthi. Is that right?
Yeah.
So this is not Xanthi. This is Xanthi.
Yeah.
And we're confident about that?
Yes.
Okay. And then we had some discussion about whether this should be called hearing or perceiving or whatever. And so I'm saying let's set those words aside for the moment and just zoom in on the Xanthi that we're in agreement was there. And the question is, does that Xanthi have any characteristics, whether they be auditory characteristics or motion characteristics or color characteristics or...
I mean, I feel like it, this kind of contradicts what I just said, but it feels like they just have sound characteristics. Like it's xanthi. There's no motion, there's no color, there's sounds. I mean, I don't know, am I seeing the letters but
so
it's all muddied.
I didn't mean to be implying that you should be seeing the letters. I was just trying to say...
No, but I'm trying to think, are there any other characteristics of that kind of experience of xanthi? And it's funny because I kind of wonder, maybe I'm seeing the two syllables as separated, like I'm visualizing the word, but that feels, interfered with by the fact that I happened to be writing the word. So,
okay,
but I well, maybe I shouldn't speak generally, but I think I am often breaking up words in my head.
That may be, and but I would say let's not speculate about that. We'll find out that you're breaking up words in your head, or we won't. And
yeah.
So xanthi is present to you as two syllables. Is there a voice involved in this xanthi?
I think it's my voice. I think I am perceiving my voice, but I'm very aware that my voice that I hear is not the voice that you hear. And I guess that's because maybe it's because I work in audio and have had the opportunity to hear my recorded voice played back to me quite a lot. And I know that is not the voice that I hear in my head. But
so at the moment of the beep, are you in some way recognizing, well, this isn't the same kind of voice that you guys would hear? Or is that a retrospection?
I'm hearing it as my voice that I know I know that voice to be my internal voice. Okay. That is the voice that I hear when I hear my voice, but I know it to not be the voice that you hear.
Okay.
It's my internal voice, which sounds different, even though it doesn't sound at all. It sounds different.
So things can sound, we can hear things, even though there's no physical vibration out there in the real world. So I'm not trying to argue us out of the phenomenon of hearing at all. I think people can hear things in their imagination. But what I do want us to not fall into the trap is of saying hearing when it's really more like speaking. So the next line of questioning that I've got is something like, is this more an auditory, I hear my voice, or is this more a speaking, I'm speaking xanthi?
Well, and I think I was speaking it probably, because I'm writing out the letters, sort of showing my daughter. So I think I was saying it audibly, but I do think I was hearing it, perceiving it internally, as well as in a way that is different to what I just kind of recalled with in the groceries. Like that felt very much like like it wasn't going on in here and out there. It was just going outwards. It wasn't existing inside and going out. Whereas xanthi felt like it was existing inside as I was writing it.
Okay. Mm-hmm. And so did I understand you to be saying maybe I was indeed saying aloud xanthi?
I think I very possibly was, yeah.
So that sounds quite highly speculative. And our task is never to speculate. We would much rather have you say, I don't know about that. Maybe I was. Maybe it seems logical that I was, or whatever. But let's not go there. The question is, as best you can. And this is the first sampling day, so as we told you, we're not expecting you to be any good at this. But so as best you can directly recall, is there an external speaking involved? And the next question is, so you think you are speaking xanthi?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. And then I understand that that your experience is more about what you're calling the inner portion than the outer portion of Zan Thi. Is that right?
Yes. And because once again, I mean, I know you're only interested in the moment of the beep, but my feeling is that Zan Thi continued in my inner experience beyond the writing it down. But then, of course, I started writing it in the notebook as well. But like what I've written in the notebook is Zan-Thi, and I've sort of written it out phonetically, and then not X-A-N-T. Yeah, so it felt like it kind of went on a loop.
So, as if in my imagination, it's Zan Thi, Zan Thi, Zan Thi. Is that?
Yeah.
Is that what you mean?
Yeah.
And that would take longer than it would take to write out Zan Thi, would seem.
What do you mean it would take longer than it would take to write out? Like, I mean, it's repeating.
So my question is, does it seem like the inner Zan Thi precedes the writing and also extends past the writing? Or does it seem like it's all in sync, even though physically it couldn't possibly be in sync? So what I'm trying to get at here is I want us to separate the physics of the experience, what we take to be the physics of the experience, from the experience of the experience. And so it's possible to be experiencing saying Zan Thi as if that were in sync with the writing, even though physically that's not possible.
Mm.
Or it could be that I experience myself as saying Zan Thi, Zan Thi, Zan Thi, and that would take me 10 seconds, even though it would only take me 2 seconds to write it.
Mm. So it feels like it happens in the first instance as I'm writing. Like I'm sort of, as I said, I felt like I probably wrote it as X-A-N, pause, T-H-E. So it feels like but then it continues as a loop after I've written it.
Okay, I think I understand that. But then I want to make sure that we have gotten as good as resolution as we can about so does this seem like, so this is an inner phenomenon. We're in agreement about that. No question about that. The question I still have is whether this is a hearing phenomenon or a speaking phenomenon. That this is more like what I would generally do with my external ears, even though my external ears aren't involved here, but it's, so I would talk about pitch and the sound quality and whatever. Or is it more a speaking, in which case it feels like what I would do with my throat or mouth or something, even though that's not involved either. But it seems like a producing, coming out here as opposed to coming in here. And I don't know is a perfectly good answer to that question.
Yeah, my answer is I don't know, I think.
Okay.
Good.
So the first sampling day, what we're talking, this interview right now is, we don't generally think that we can get good answers on the first day. We throw the first day's data out routinely all the time, actually.
Good.
And so the object is for us to raise questions for you, like, what the hell are these guys talking about? The difference between speaking and hearing and whatever, is that really a deal? And maybe it is for you, and maybe it's not. And our task is for us to sort of practice separating out what's in experience from what's in reality, so that we can focus in on experience and really sort of not worry about whether this makes sense in the physical world or not.
Okay, so because I think what I was finding was that my inner experience was completely dominated by my reality this morning, be it because I'm watching something on TV or because I'm having a conversation with my partner or because I'm engaging with a 2-year-old, which is quite, like it's quite, I mean, I've used the word engaging, but like it's not like I'm not having a separate line of thought when I'm having a conversation. Sometimes if I'm having a boring, like I'm bored with a conversation that, someone's talking to and it's boring or something, my mind might wander.
So I'm going to push back just a little bit about this, and that is so your inner experience here at this beep about Xanthi is clearly driven by the fact that you're writing Xanthi for your daughter. I've got no problems with that. But on the other hand, you're saying Xanthi, 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 and that has gone on apparently after the writing is done. And so that portion of it is divorced from or separate from or whatever from the external task. So even on those times when you're and I would say, well, we've only looked at 2 beeps, so it's hard to generalize from two samples. Mm-hmm. But even in this situation where you're quite tightly tied to reality, you're not perfectly tied to reality. Your inner experience is creating its.
Yep.
That's true. Yeah.
Well, and in both of, again, just 2 beeps, but in both of these, the actual activity you're engaged with doesn't seem to be a part of the experience. You're doing those things skillfully, writing the letters, getting the yogurt, but that's not the center of the experience at the moment.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, in the groceries beep, you're right. I can't even really remember what I was doing in the reality beyond where I was standing, and I'm sure I was engaged in an activity. But yeah, the speaking language experience was the dominant, was what I was, I guess, where my mind, so I was, whatever I was doing, I guess it feels like I was not thinking about what I was doing.
Well, I think it sounded to me like it was more than that. It was like you were not experiencing what you were doing in your direct experience. It was happening. You were skillfully doing it, as Alex said.
Yeah.
But you weren't attending to it in your direct experience, whatever it was, getting the yogurt, dishing up the yogurt.
Yeah, but can you do something like that without thinking about it at all? I mean, I guess.
Well, we're going to find out. That's what we're here for. But in general, the answer to that is yes, I think. Mm-hmm. I think experience is as much destructive as it is constructive, and so your bag of bones, which is determining what it is that you're going to experience at any particular moment, is going to zero in on one thing and not on another. And on that first beep, you were zeroed in on what you were saying to your partner, and you were destroying the visual stuff that came in about the yogurt or whatever. Which isn't to say that you were not intending to it. You weren't throwing the yogurt on the floor by mistake.
I would have remembered that.
Probably. But as far as being before the footlights of your consciousness, it sounds like probably not. But on the first day, we don't want to. This is an aside conversation that then we should bracket away, because maybe we will determine in the future sampling that you are always paying attention to the visual aspect of your environment, and that would be fine too. Right now, what we want to do is to not assume that just because your eyes are open and you're engaged in something that you must be thinking about that. Maybe you are, maybe you're not. So shall we do one more? I know Alec has a
let's do one more
coming up.
That's all right.
So the other 2 are very similar and feel at both times the beep went off and I went, oh, what was I thinking? I kind of panicked oh, what was I thinking? And at both times, it was mid-conversation, once again, involving my 2-year-old. So
let's pick
the
one.
first one.
Let's pick one of these. Let's not do two.
All right, let's just
Alec,
pick
you want to
one.
do this?
Sure. Yep.
Okay, so we'll do the first one. It was not long after so I basically woke up and plugged the thing in, and so it would have been, 10 or 15 minutes after I'd woken up. I'm sitting on the bed, drinking a cup of coffee. My partner and I will always have a cup of coffee in bed before we get up, and the 2-year-old is in the bed having a little cup of warm milk with us. So we're kind of sitting there having a chat, she's kind of nonsense. And so right as the beep happened, she had just drunk her little warm milk, which she calls her coffee, and she said, "I drink my coffee." And the beep went off just after she had said that. So that's all I kind of know to write down, because as far as I am aware, I'm just listening to her saying that, and there's nothing else going on except from the fact that I experienced in reality her saying that. And I don't know. I mean, I guess I'm listening and hearing that and processing that internally, but it doesn't feel like there's anything else happening.
And so in reality, she is saying, I drink my coffee.
Yeah.
And is it accurate to say I experience that? I hear it?
Yeah, I mean, I hear it. And yeah, I mean, I hear it, and I don't think, it doesn't spark deep thoughts or questioning in my mind. I'm kind of, I'm always interested in hearing, she's funny and very cute, and it's just kind of enjoyable to listen to her, even though she's not saying anything particularly interesting or asking me a question, or, she's just kind of stream of consciousness, blah, blah, blah. So yeah, but I hear it. I heard it. I heard it in reality. And so to separate, I don't know how to, like, it doesn't, as I kind of said before, in that instance, it doesn't feel like I'm hearing anything internally.
Sure. So if I could compare this one to the first one we talked about, which was actually beep 2, I think. So in that beep, you were speaking aloud. You were talking about the grocery substitutions. And I think we kind of agreed my experience is I'm speaking aloud and I'm engaged in that. I'm experiencing the speaking of that. Is the same kind of true here, except in this case I'm hearing, I'm taking something in, I'm just engaged in that. There's no separate visualization or thought or whatever. I'm just receiving. Okay. And the she's cute, this is funny, stream of consciousness, is that present to you at all, or is that sort of an after the fact, this is why this is cute?
Yeah, I think that's an after the fact. It's not, I'm not hearing like this kind of, that's not going on. I feel like that's an after the fact kind of justification of why I can be engaged in listening to something that's quite sort of one-sided and mundane.
Sure. So we're all sitting on the bed, we're all having our coffee or her milk coffee or whatever, and she says, I drink my coffee, and I'm hearing her say that. Yeah.
And then the beep goes off and I go, oh, what was I thinking? And then I go, I think I was just thinking what I just heard. I mean, I just heard that. It was all,
So would it be fair to say I heard my daughter speak those things, and that was all that was in my experience? Or would it be fair to say I heard my daughter speak those things, and I was also recognizing that I was on the bed with my partner, or was the partner gone at that moment? Experience?
No, he was. I mean, he was there physically, sitting there. I mean, I'm definitely aware of the setting.
Are you aware of the setting in the same way that you're aware of your daughter speaking?
No. The setting seems very much just in the background. You know, in the same way that I think at a certain point, everyone just kind of gets up, or she gets up and says, "I want breakfast," and I don't think I even think I'm getting up now. I just get up now, right? Like so the setting's there, but it's not. There's no obvious processing or registering it.
So there's a centrality of experience that has to do with my daughter speaking, and there's not a centrality of experience that has to do with the setting. Is that right?
Yeah.
And so is that to say that the setting is just really not part of my experience at all? Or is that to say, and here I don't want a speculation, so about your daughter's voice, about your daughter speaking, it seems like we're saying I'm directly apprehending that. She's speaking and I'm hearing it, and there's no question about that.
Mm.
But it also seems like about the setting, my husband's drinking coffee, but I'm not attending to the coffeeness of my husband. It's there. I recognize it's not there. So I'm not spilling his coffee or whatever. But it's not directly present to me in any of the same way as my daughter speaking. And I'm not trying to talk you into that. I just want to.
Yeah, no, it doesn't. I mean, because I'm just sort of even thinking now, to what extent is my setting right now present? And I mean, it does. I mean, it's definitely there, and I'm seeing it, and I know exactly where I am, but I'm not. There's no deliberate or deliberate's not the right word. I mean, yeah. I guess it doesn't feel right to say that it's part of my experience, even though it obviously is part of my experience because I'm there physically, but it doesn't feel like part of my internal experience. It feels like.
So the hard thing about these things is that they're speaking about it in generality. So I could call your attention to the pressure on your backside, and when I do that, you can probably feel the chair on your backside.
Yeah.
And my guess is that you haven't been attending to that for the last half an hour.
Yeah.
It's been there the whole time. You've been sitting skillfully on your chair and not falling off it, and probably adjusting your posture when some pressure got whatever. But that happens outside of your directly apprehended experience, it seems to me.
Yes.
And so now the question is whether your partner was like that at the moment of this particular beep. There was pressure on my backside, but I wasn't paying attention to it. There was my partner with a cup of coffee next to me, but I wasn't attending to that. And I'm not asking you to answer that question. What I'm trying to do is to raise the question so that then on subsequent days we can...
Yeah. And it's a good point because, I mean, I know that I was paying direct attention to my daughter because she was speaking and she had just said those words. But, you know, so she's here, he's there.
Your bottom is doing whatever it's doing.
My bottom's on the bed, you know, I'm definitely, like, I'm leaning. I mean, I'd say he would be more of my experience than the feeling of my body. God,
so
I don't know.
we're moving into the range of speculation, which I don't want us to do. So this is about sensitizing us to the possibility that maybe those things are there and maybe they're not. And if they are, we'd like to talk about them. And if they're not, then we can talk about just what's there.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm guessing that we have accomplished what we need to accomplish today, and Alec has an appointment coming up here of some sort that she needs to get to, and so what we need to do is to figure out when we're going to do this again, or if, I suppose, first, and then when we're going to do it again. And so I'm in agreement that your daughter wrestling with the earphone is probably problematic. It's not terribly problematic, I would say, but it's problematic. It's not fatally problematic. But if we want to do it at a different time, that might be a scheduling issue. If we can, it's going to be harder for Alec, I think. But so do you want to suggest? Oh, and we could do the suggestion by email or by a when to meet poll or something like that. And so that means that you will wear the beeper on your Tuesday or Wednesday early morning.
Yeah. I'd say Tuesday. The mornings are, yeah. I mean, how do you just, like, what is the, I want to say what's the right answer, but when you're talking to someone, I mean, do you find people have a whole other different line of thinking when they're engage in a conversation with someone?
Sometimes.
Yeah, some do.
I would say the most common response when people are talking is that they're talking and that's it. There's nothing else going on.
Yeah.
But there's big individual differences about that.
Yeah. Right. All right. Well, I'm interested to see because I think I will do it the day before, and I will do it. You know, I've got a work day. I've got meetings in the morning. I might throw it in the afternoon when I don't have heaps of meetings. But I won't have my daughter constantly, demanding my attention.
And what I'm about to say is generally true, and that is, so we talked about whatever it is that we talked about today, some listening to stuff. Let's set all that stuff aside as if the next time is starting fresh. And so maybe what we talked about today would be typical of what we would find next time around, or maybe it would be atypical. Either one of those things is fine. What I don't want us to do is to say, well, last time I had this, I was listening to external speaking. I got to be listening to external speaking next time too. That's not true.
Okay.
All right. Well.
Great, and I'll send you through this audio,
you
Russell,
you
in a
all
bit.
send me the audio, and I will see whether I can get it together.
Great.
Perfect.
Thanks, guys.
All right.
Yeah,
Thank you all
good
very
meeting
much.
you.
Yeah, great to meet you. Have a good evening. Bye-bye.